You have heard me throughout this week repeatedly talk about this event this weekend, Friday and Saturday here in Washington, D.C. It's the title is Vietnam, the Power of Protest, May 1st and 2nd. The website is lessonsofvietnam.com. Phil Donahue, Julian Bond, Danny Glover, a whole bunch of great people are going to be there. Plus, I'll be moderating a panel discussion titled The Personal Impact of Our Actions, Reflections, featuring Alan Canfora, Mark Rudd, David Harris, and Susan Schnall on Saturday from 1:30 to 2:45 at the New York Avenue Presbyterian Church here in Washington, D.C. And once again, lessonsofvietnam.com is the website. One of the people who has helped put this thing together, I'm a member of the planning committee, a longtime progressive activist, a student leader at Madison, Wisconsin in the anti-war movement. Back in the day, one of the 300-plus Americans to go to Hanoi during the war, brought back the first footage from inside North Vietnam for 60 Minutes, served in the Carter administration as the youngest female head of the federal program VISTA, the Volunteers in Service to America. Marge Tabankin is with us. And, hang on just a second, Marge. Let me push the button here. There we go. Marge, welcome.
Hi.
Great to have you with us. So
thanks, Tom.
Tell us about this, first of all, about the event this weekend, and then I want to get into a conversation with you about activism and how movements happen, because we're in the midst of another one right now, the Black Lives Matter movement, and that was the Vietnam movement, and what can we learn from them? But first, what's up this weekend?
Well, from my point of view, having this as a very important part of my history, this is going to be an amazing, I think, historic one-time gathering of people who actually 50 years ago didn't even necessarily meet each other, but were all part throughout the country of an amazing movement that helped to end a war. And they used different tactics and different strategies, and we had clergy against the war and businessmen against the war and women against the war and student activists and, people who went into the Weather Underground. And I do not know in my lifetime any time when people from all of those segments will be in one place at one time. And probably, in a way, for some of us, it's the last time, because we're very cognizant of some of the people who've passed away that were tremendous mentors to us. But, to have Daniel Ellsberg and Reverend Regis and Tom Hayden and Mark Rudd and Cora Weiss and just all these people that were incredibly important to leading that movement, all being willing to be there, along with veterans who were very, very involved in organizing against the war, both in the service and after they left the service.
Yeah. It was an extraordinary time. And what are in your mind? What are the lessons from the anti-Vietnam War movement that we have lost, that we need to learn, or that we continue to hold? How has it transformed America?
So the optimistic side of me will go first, which is that I think if people organize for power and have a long-range view of how long change sometimes takes, I do believe we can change things. And I think we demonstrated that. I think the Civil Rights Movement demonstrated that. And I think that's an important lesson to remember, especially in a time when things feel just so out of control and so many people are so cynical. So for me, I wake up every day thinking we can do something about this. The flip side of that is, I think one of the lessons, and this is a sad one, is that it feels right now that that our government's policies and some of our leaders have not learned some of the lessons of the past. They still seem to lead often with military responses in places we have no business being. They spied on us. They're spying on people now, in fact, not just on activists now, but on a huge number of the American public. And, they lied to us. And, the Vietnam War was based on the Gulf of Tonkin, which was a lie, and they're lying to us now. And so having served in government, I believe in government, I really do. And one of the saddest things to me is that when I was young, probably 80% or 70% of the country believed the government was there to do good. And I think that, based on recent polling, is now down to less than a third of the country thinking that. So I think there's been some lessons learned that are good and some that haven't changed.
Well, in a way, that one of the lessons that was learned, I mean, back when we thought that government could be a force for good, I think that fundamental belief animated a lot of the rage, maybe is the wrong word, but something close to it, when we saw our government not doing good. But then came the Reagan era, where Reagan came into office saying government is evil, and that's been the prevailing meme. Certainly the Republican Party has owned that meme, but that's been the prevailing, but even Bill Clinton saying, we're going to end welfare as we know it, and we're going to roll back the Great Society and stuff like this. And it's a meme that really only serves the Republican Party, in my opinion. That
I completely agree with you.
Yeah,
I just think it's been ridiculous that the Democrats years ago did not take the principles that started in the New Deal and were continued on the better parts of the Great Society and remind people. People basically just assume the water's clean, the food they eat is okay, the plane's going to work. The government does a lot of important things, and to allow the Reagan frame to exist through all these years is really a failing on the part of the Democratic Party.
Yeah. Now, you worked in the Jimmy Carter administration, and
I did.
As the youngest female head of of Vista. The last 2 years, help me with this. My recollection may be wrong, but what I think I remember is that the last 2 years of the Carter administration, Jimmy Carter started going down that deregulation road that Maggie Thatcher had, was really pushing really hard. And I'm familiar with that because Louise and I in '83 started a travel agency in Atlanta, and we were able to do that and build it the way we did, in part because Carter deregulated that industry. Over a short period of time, that was a great thing. It created the bubble. We made a lot of money off it. But over the long term, it destroyed independent travel agents all over the country. It led to these airline mega mergers. Was there a debate inside the Carter White House about how to go and how far to go when it came to things like backing off the role of government?
I don't want to be too dogmatic about my opinion on this because I was not really in those conversations. Mm-hmm. However, I can say that having been close to just about every Democratic administration since the Carter administration, I believe that debate is constantly represented within the domestic policy staff and the economic councils of advisors to the president. They always put elements from both sides. Same thing around Glass-Steagall. Mm. You had Robert Reich arguing on one side, and you had Gene Sperling and Larry Summers on the other, and that goes on and on and on. And both of those dualities are present in almost every Democratic administration. It is really up to the president to decide which of those advisors he's going to favor.
Yeah, and which makes the announcement today of Bernie Sanders that he's running for president, not to move Hillary Clinton to the left, but to actually run for president as a progressive, I think all the more consequential, although that's a bit of a digression and just my personal opinion. Anyhow, the event this weekend, Friday and Saturday, it's all day Friday, all day Saturday, right?
Yeah, it starts with a wonderful evening of music with Peter Yarrow and the next generation of Yarrows. Oh,
that's great. Peter, Paul, and
We're
Mary.
wonderful singer-songwriters, and it ends on Saturday night with an amazing cultural program with Holly Near, this fantastic young group called Emma's Revolution.
I am so looking forward to it.
We call them the children of Pete Seeger because he loved them and adored them, and they carry on his legacy.
Marge, we're out of time. Hang on just a second, Marge.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Marge Tabankin, you see her this weekend here in Washington, D.C. The website is lessonsofvietnam.com. Marge, thanks so much for dropping by.
You're welcome.
Thank you.